All right, this is Chapter 6 in a nutshell review real quickly. This was all from Chapter 5. We've done this, leave, change opposite, distributed property, combine like terms. This is all just simplifying. And then what happens is if we have variables on both sides, we're going to subtract one set from both sides. We don't want to weigh variables in variables. We want to weigh variables in numbers. So we're going to try to get a variable by itself, isolate the variable, get everything away from it. And after that, you should be in a two-step equation. I've given you two different ways to solve it, either rainbow or cancellation. And then if you want to make sure, you substitute to check your answer. So those are the steps we're going to follow. I'll show you how that looks when we do a problem. All right, so let me go through those process. Leave, change opposite. That's because we want to make sure that this negative gets distributed. Okay, so distributed property. That'd make a negative 8c because one negative makes it negative. One negative makes it negative again, so I have a negative 2. Now combine your like terms. C's match C's, so I end up with negative 3c plus negative 2 equals negative 11c minus 12. Should have done leave, change opposite there as well. Now I have variables on both sides, so I'm going to subtract one set. And it does not matter which side you subtract. I like to subtract the smaller one, so I'm going to subtract a negative 3c, which is the same as adding a 3c. Those cancel out. And now on this side I have a negative 2. And on this side, I have a negative 8c and a negative 12. We're in a two-step algebraic equation. Now, that step I put on there, but that's just recognition, meaning I'm ready to solve it. So, let me set that up. I'll do it both ways. Here's what it looks like in rainbow. I say put your variable down, c. What they did to it in order of operations, they multiplied by negative 8, they added a negative 12, and they got negative 2 for their answer. Somebody already did this work. We're going to undo it. If they added negative 12, we're going to do the opposite, which is adding positive 12. We're going to divide by negative 8 since they multiplied, and we hit e equals in between. So negative 2 plus 12 is 10, and 10 divided by negative 8, well, that's one negative, so it goes in there one time with two remainders, so negative 1 and 2/8, or negative 1 and 1/4, that's what c equals. And there's your answer. It's the exact same math if you do cancellation. I'll show it to you. Find the variable and find what they did. They did this, then this, so let me undo that, and it cancels out. But I do it to both sides to keep things even. So negative 2 plus 12, it's supposed to be a plus sign, and that becomes 10. 10 equals negative 8c. I want to get rid of the negative 8, so I divide by negative 8 since they multiplied. Those cancel out, and I'm left with c equals negative 1 and 1/4. Either way solves it. Okay. If we go to inequalities, inequalities are the second half of this chapter, and there's a few differences. First of all, there's a range of answers. Second of all, you may need to flip the sign based on these two factors. If you multiply or divide by negative, you will flip it because basically you're taking the negative identity and flipping its side. If you flip the variable from the right-hand side to the left-hand side, then that inequality is going to want to follow. So for example, we talk about flip, not flip, flip, flip. This is a not flip because I like where the variable's at on the left, and I'll be dividing by a positive, we're okay. Here I like where the variable's at, but I'll be dividing by a negative, so that's what we consider a flip. So I have a not flip, a flip. This one, the variable's on the wrong side, and I'll be dividing by a negative. That's a flip, which takes it right back to where it started. On this one, we have a flip because it's on the wrong side, but no flip because of this, so it's just one flip. Here I have a flip because I'll be dividing by a negative, and here I have a not flip because it's on the correct side, and I'll be dividing by a positive. So let me show you that. We do it the exact same way, but you have to have it. Now I have a flip here because I will have to divide by a negative 2. So I know that it will not be greater than or equal to. With a flip, it will be less than or equal to. I know the graph for that. Since it's got the underline, that means the dot is filled in. Since I'm going to write it with the variable on the left, it's going to look like this. I just don't know what that number is that it is less than or equal to. So I solve it the exact same way. Either I set up the rainbow and say, well, there's a y that they took times negative 2 and added 7 and got 18. So we'll do the opposite of minus 7, hit equals on your calculator, and divide by negative 2. 18 minus 7 is 11. 11 divided by negative 2 is negative 5 1/2. Or I go through here and do the exact same thing with cancellation. They did, so let me undo it. I'm now at negative 2y is greater than or equal to 11. I divide by a negative, which is where I have to. Since I divided by a negative, this thing has to flip and become this. That cancels out, and over here I get a negative 5 and 1/2. So this is negative, we're at negative 4 and negative 5, and I should have messed that up. I should have gone to negative 5 and negative 6, excuse me, and then right in between them would be at negative 5 and 1/2, and there's your graph. I do have a couple suggestions if you're doing story problems. Use the words, convert them to math symbols, so like more meaning plus, and than meaning switch the order, is meaning equals. Two that people get messed up on are at least, which is at least is greater than or equal to, and at most, so less than or equal to. Understand the problem and look for the variables, the unknown, the coefficient. A lot of times they use the word each, and constant, the thing that does not change that you already know.